What is going on, guys? Welcome to the third installment of the Insidious franchise with Insidious Part 3. This one being directed by Leigh Whannell, who stars, one of the stars in the original Saw film, and a really big working talent in Hollywood today when it comes to horror, writing, and directing. And yeah, this is his take, still written by James Wan, but Leigh Whannell's take on direction, which a lot of people like a lot better, and a lot of people don't like as much as the first two. Now, I think I've mentioned this before somewhere, but when I watched the original trilogy at first, I did like this one a little bit better than the first two, especially the second one. But rewatching them, I actually prefer the first two over this one, just by a little bit, not by a mile or anything, but I find I just find the direction tighter in the first two, I would say. Nothing wrong with the direction in this one. I'm not saying it's weak. I'm not saying it's, you know. I guess I like James Wan's touch better. I don't know. But this one's it's a really enjoyable, very creepy and very horrifying film too, and it's a lot of fun to be had. But getting right into it, this one is a prequel to, well, both Insidiouses, but it's a prequel to the original Insidious. Taking place a few years before, not a whole lot, but like obviously Lin Shaye is around the same age. But of course they had to start making prequels because they made that decision to kill off Lin Shaye in the first film, so they have to keep the franchise going somehow. Follows this girl named Quinn, who she goes to seek Elise, played by Lin Shaye, knowing that she's a medium, and she was a medium recommended to her by some friends or family friends or something like that, by a woman named Emily, who Elise had helped prior. And Quinn is looking to contact her mother, who passed away from cancer. And she basically wants closure with her mother and wasn't able to say all the things she wanted to say to her before her passing. So she is seeking the help from Lin Shaye. But Lin Shaye has been retired for a while in this timeline, and she's out of practice. But she kind of like has a liking to this Quinn girl and finds her really sweet, and Quinn kind of like convinces her or gives her kind of a reason to try this again. But the thing with Lin Shaye and where the story kind of goes forward with is Elise Lin Shaye, her name is Elise, her husband passing away by suicide a year prior. And this really devastated her and broke her heart to the point where, which is also explained in the film, where she first started to dive into the dark side of the further, which she explains also around the middle of the film. How she thinks of it is like there's two realms between this world and the next, like in between, and there's a light kind of purgatory or further, and the dark. So there's the dark and the light. And when she went into the dark to seek her husband, some presence followed her, and that's kind of what made her stop practicing this whole job that she had entirely, because this female entity followed her into our world and threatened her beyond comparison, beyond belief, like she's never been threatened before by an entity. And she is basically terrified that this entity is going to take her life eventually. I like Quinn's character, and I like her father is a very odd character. He's just he's very stressed out by obviously the death of his wife, but he's also just his behaviors are weird. I found his methods of grief, I guess, are very present and very different. he doesn't make the best dad for what he's going through. He depends a lot on his own daughter to basically do too much and way more than she's kind of built for. But like his character is a well written one. It's just he's a very odd person. But you know, grief obviously affects people in many different ways. Quinn is an aspiring actress, and she is auditioning in her school theater, who James Wan actually plays the theater director of. And basically, after her audition, she gets hit by a car, which is completely unexpected. It's one of the most unexpected accidents you see in a film. Usually, the tension kind of builds and leads to something about to happen, but this one just boom, she gets hit by a car out of nowhere. And when she gets hit by this car, she brushes with the further, and another entity, which is the main villain in this film, which is a creepy villain, the creepiest in all three films. When it comes to the villain themselves, the man who can't breathe is probably the creepiest in the franchise, I would say, hands down. Terrifying, menacing presence. So when she brushed with the further, this entity basically got half of her soul, and the way they portray half of her soul in the further is really cool, because she's basically missing a face, and she's just crawling because she's missing like half of her front arms, and she's kind of crawling with like half a face. Really creepy stuff. But this entity, this man who can't breathe, wants the rest of her, and using Lin Shaye and Quinn, whom they start to have kind of like an astral projection connection to each other, wants to basically possess Quinn in her full form and bring her to the darkness, because this entity is a much eviler form of the other entities, which basically want to come to our world and possess those in our world to become human again. This one wants to drag souls into the further and basically damn them forever. So that's that's what Lin Shaye. That's how Lin Shaye describes this entity. There's a scene where it's kind of creepy, where she's knocking at her neighbor's wall, who her neighbor is actually played by Ashton Moyo, who was the kid in Hereditary, the main teenager or whatever. So it's cool to see him in here. She's knocking on the wall of their apartment, because he lives right, like his bedroom's right next to hers, and they have this knock thing that they do to each other. But then she realizes that he's not even home, so obviously it wasn't him knocking, it was something a lot more sinister or insidious. The woman entity is very creepy too, the one that stalks Elise. The villains, they did a really good job on the villains. Leigh Whannell knew how to direct villains in this one for sure. What else do we have in here? There's a scene where the father, again, he says one of the harshest lines you can say to a child, or a daughter or son, but in this case a daughter. He says, because the daughter kind of tells him or asks him why he keeps ignoring the fact that he ever had a wife and never wants to talk about her or think about her, and he says, "Oh, don't worry, I see her every day when I look at you." And it's like, man, that's really hard to hear, especially when Quinn is dealing with her own grief of losing her mother. Hearing that from her father, like, must make her feel, like, right after an accident too, because this is after she got hit by a car and has a broken leg and all that. Hearing that, it's got to be the last thing you want to hear. I mean, fuck, that would make somebody suicidal probably. Wrong time to deliver that line to Quinn, that's for sure. There's a scene that kind of converts Quinn's father to start believing, because he doesn't, obviously, at the beginning, he doesn't believe in ghosts or anything like that. But there's a scene where I love the footprints that this entity that's after Quinn leaves. They look like tar, like they look very thick. Some of them even look like glass right there, actually. Like they're solid. Like he's leaving like solid footprints, not wet footprints, but like solid, like I don't know, like dark glass or something. It's really really creepy. And then the father looks out the window of her bedroom where the footprints lead to, and you can see a body at the. He sees a body and he figures like he didn't see anybody in the apartment, so who the hell jumped? The window's broken and everything. And then Quinn takes a peek herself, and then there's a huge jump scare with the man right over there in the window, and it's a good jump scare. Usually jump scares are pretty cheap, but that one was they did a good job on. And that's when the father starts believing, and then he goes to visit Elise himself, and this is where Elise tells her story of losing Jack, her husband, and basically starts to explain the further a lot more and what Quinn is going through and all that. And then she, of course, takes it upon herself to help Quinn find her mother and help her mother, obviously. And then the whole scene where Elise is in the further is absolutely amazing. I love her interaction with Jack in the further, or the demon that's portraying Jack, because it's not actually Jack, and she figures it out really quickly because she knew her husband very well, and doesn't, because with the behavior of this demon interpreting Jack, she didn't buy it for a minute, and then she's fighting the female entity, and this is where Elise literally goes full badass in the trilogy in the franchise, and she's just like, come on, bitch. She like throws the woman. I mean, Lin Shaye, she's not like 30 something. She's in her 70s, and she's a boss ass bitch. Boss ass mature bitches are the best, and that's why she owns this franchise and single-handedly became a scream queen from this. It's because of scenes like that and scenes like that alone. She is amazing. Now, of course, those freaking Ghostbuster guys are back. Anybody who's seen my previous reviews know how I feel about those Ghostbusters spectral sighting dudes. They're obviously a little bit younger in this one. They have, one guy has a mohawk, and they're a lot more inexperienced, kind of, because I think they were just starting off or something like that. And at the end of the film, you can see it shows Lin Shaye joining them and showing what led to Insidious Part 1 and 2. And but again, their humor is just stupid, and I don't think it's fitting for a film that has this mood to it. That humor just is out of place, in my opinion. I've already said it in both the other Insidious reviews, and I still hold firm. Like, it's the same shit. It doesn't fit this one more or less. It's the same shit. It just doesn't fit with this theme, with this. It would fit another movie, but it doesn't fit this one. But I'm not gonna sound like a broken record or anything. You know my thoughts already if you've seen the previous reviews. When Quinn gets possessed, it's terrifying. She destroys the hell out of her cast on her foot, and you just cringe from knowing how much that must hurt. And then the demon, starts to make her say really horrible things to her father. And I wrote down post-accident. Oh yeah, that was when she had half her soul taken. And here's a Lin Shaye in the further trying to fight off the demon that's trying to capture her entire soul, which he tries to, and she does actually make it to the further, but then she destroys the demon herself, and lives. And then I put also discovery of the further. But I don't think anybody discovered the further for the first time other than Quinn and her father. Because Lin Shaye already knew about it. way, way before. Yeah, I think that's all I've got for that. And as a prequel, they did a really good job with it. Leigh Whannell did, and James Wan writing it, obviously. It's a good entry, and I really like the Insidious franchise for keeping on going while making that decision to kill off Lin Shaye in the first, or at least in the first one. Which obviously they did, thinking they weren't going to make more films. I'm assuming, because of the popularity of the first one is why they decided to make more. But they didn't. They came up with good ideas in keeping the stories going, and prequels are a good way to go and a safe way to go. But like I said, they did well with it, which is good. My God, Quinn. I didn't write down the actress name, but my God, she is a beautiful actress. I think she was 19 when filming. She could have even been 18, but damn, what a beautiful, beautiful girl. Angelic face, like gorgeous eyes, everything. And the dad, like I said, he's written well. He's just an awkward guy, but it makes sense with the grief he was going through. And then Shaye is badass. So it's a very good entry, in my opinion. Insidious Chapter 3. And I will be reviewing The Last Key. I don't own it, but I'll be watching that on Netflix, and I'll be getting through that as well. So stay tuned for that one. Subscribe to Morgan Film Fan if you like to listen to my voice, or if you like my film reviews. There's plenty on the channel. There's plenty more to come. So until next time, have a good night, take care, and cheers.